Remember a time when the MCU was really good? Remember when they used to release entertaining films that just captured your imagination? I remember a time when the MCU would release a film, it was an event to us. No expense would be spared. I would take my whole family, my kids would dress up as the superheroes that we were going to go watch, and it was just an enjoyable event for the entire family. Those were great times for the MCU. And I remember phase 1 through 3, it was just something about it, cinematic gold that's never going to be duplicated again. Because the way they put all that together with all these films and linked everything together, it was perfect. Now, I remember phase 1 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it spanned from 2008 to 2012, and it introduced core heroes and set the stage for a larger narrative in the MCU. And this phase consisted of 6 movies. Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, First Avenger, and of course the Avengers. Now, I know a lot of folks had some issues with some of these movies, like The Incredible Hulk had some issues, but let's be honest, the Hulk, it's hard to do a standalone movie with him. But the way they merged him in with the Avengers, I thought it was well done. And this movie, it established characters that were normally B and C list tier, but the way they did this, it elevated them to A-tier characters overnight. And not only did it introduce us to these heroes, but it also introduced us to organizations like S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra. And the final film, The Avengers, culminated in the formation of this team after Loki and Thanos orchestrate a plot to steal the Tesseract and pretty much use one of the Infinity Stones to conquer Earth. And I mean, there was something special about the Avengers. I remember when I first seen this, it reminded me of when I was a kid and I first saw Star Wars in the theater for the first time. There was just something about it that resonated with me. And even as a young kid, I knew that this was something special. And I knew the way my kids took to it, that this was going to be something positive for pop culture. Because, man, let's face it, we really needed a shot in the arm because Star Wars had gone stale. It really wasn't good since they started doing the sequels. And, you know, Harry Potter was over, and we just needed something that was going to fill that void. And the Avengers and the MCU filled that void. My kids loved it. Now, in phase 2, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it focused on the aftermath of the Battle of New York, and it introduced new heroes and further expanded the MCU's lore. And this phase primarily centered around the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. and their post-battle exploits, and it included the rise of Hydra within the agency of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the creation of Ultron, and key themes that included the exploration of the Infinity Stones, and it introduced the Guardians of the Galaxy, new heroes. And I'll be honest, I mean, this phase here is what really, I think, made the MCU take off, because some of the key developments in this was, of course, Hydra and their rise and the way they infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. and how they survived all this time since World War II. And it was just something that was just, I mean, it was well written, it was well done. And the rise of Ultron, and it was actually the Avengers that, well, it was Tony Stark and Bruce Banner that unintentionally created a dangerous artificial intelligence. And it was really used to combat evil like Hydra, but it went out of control. And like I said, it introduced a lot of new heroes. And this phase introduced characters like Falcon and Scarlet Witch and Vision and Ant-Man and Wasp, and of course the Guardians of the Galaxy, which, you know, like I said, I didn't think they would be able to adapt this to the MCU. When I heard they were doing a Guardians movie, I was just like, there's no way it's going to work. But I don't know what it was, man. They fit it in perfectly. And remember when we had really good writing that they could do that? And like I said, phase 2, it pretty much focused on the Infinity Stones, what their origins were, and it exploited, you know, what they did and where they were from, and it set the stage for later events in this phase. And this movie, I mean, this phase only had a few movies as well. It had Iron Man 3, which I know a lot of people had issues with, but I enjoyed it. I don't think it was bad. And Thor Dark World, another one that people kind of frown upon, but I'm going to be honest with you. You take Thor Dark World and compare it to anything that's come out after Endgame, and I'll take Thor Dark World any day, every day. And then you had Captain America Winter Soldier. Now, I think, in my opinion, this is in my top 3 because This was such a dark and gritty story, and I loved it. The way that they introduced Bucky, the Winter Soldier, into this. I mean, it was a real close adaptation of what they did in the comics, and it was just awesome. And of course, like I said, Guardians of the Galaxy, and my kids ate this up. My oldest son loved Star-Lord. He thought he was funny. He thought it was just, I mean, we had to get the costume for him and everything. He was just all in on Star-Lord. And then, of course, you had the Age of Ultron. In my opinion, probably the weakest of the Avenger movies, but you know what? For what it was, I enjoyed it. I mean, the way they still brought it all together, it ties everything in, and it was just a clean, movie. And then, of course, you had Ant-Man. Now, this was another one. I was sitting there thinking, now, how in the world are they going to do Ant-Man, and how are they going to fit him in? But the way they did it, with the comedy in it, the way he interacted with his friends, the way he would go on, his friends would go on a tirade of telling stories. I mean, it was just hilarious. I mean, and, it was funny, but it was also serious. And I don't know what it was. It was just, I liked it. And that brings us to phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this was the final part of the Infinity Saga. And it concluded with the events of the Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man Far From Home. And it had 11 films in this phase. It included Captain America Civil War. Now, I know a lot of folks had problems with Civil War, but I loved it. I liked the way they did it. Was it a accurate adaptation from the comics? No, but I give credit where credit was due. They didn't have the licensing for a lot of these characters, so they had to do with what they had, and I think they did a great job with it. I loved the way, the Winter Soldier and Black Panther, some of the fights that they had in this, it was just epic, and I loved how they introduced Black Panther in this, and they made him a really cool character. And I mean, it's sad because I don't like what they did to him in his own movie, which I'll get to shortly. But then you had Doctor Strange, and this one was another one. I'm like, how are they going to do it? But they wrote him in, and it was perfect. And I mean, was it a correct adaptation of the comics? No, but it was close enough. And then they had Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, this one here wasn't as good as the first one, but I'll be honest, man, I still liked it. I still liked how they told the story, and it just shows their flaws. And I don't know. I mean, it was special. And then you had Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, this is where I started to see some of the chinks in the armor, because this is when they race swapped Mary Jane, and nothing against this actress that plays her in this. I can't never remember her name, but let's be real, man. Mary Jane is supposed to be a hot, fiery redhead, and this wasn't her. But all in all, I still enjoyed the film because I liked Tom Holland and the way he portrayed Spider-Man. Then you had Thor Ragnarok, and another one, a lot of people had problems with it, but I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was really good. It was well done. I liked how they put it all together at the end, and especially, when they got invaded by Thanos. I mean, it was just in the end credits. It set everything up for Endgame. Then you had Black Panther, which, like I said earlier, I liked Black Panther in Civil War, and I wish they hadn't made him a secondary character in his own movie. I enjoyed the movie for what it was, but I just wish we'd have had more Black Panther in it instead of all the other side characters. And then you had Avengers Infinity War, and in my opinion, this is probably the best Avengers movie of all. I mean, I didn't know how they were going to pull this off with all the characters and heroes that they had in this movie. How are they going to get everybody equal amount of time in it? And the way they did it was just brilliant, because, you had a couple of different, scenarios going on. You had battles going on in space. You had battles going on off-world, and then you had the big battle in Wakanda. And I'm going to be honest, man, when Thor shows up at the Battle of Wakanda, oh my goodness, that sends chills down your spine when you watch that. It's just like, wow, that was awesome. And then you had Ant-Man and the Wasp, and that movie, to me, it didn't live up to the first one. It was okay, but I mean, it just kind of sets up more for what's going to happen in Endgame. And then you had Captain Marvel. Now, this is where I really started to see that, hey, this is going in another direction. And it was a lot of the chinks in the armor that showed in this one. And I didn't really enjoy it. It really wasn't, it seemed like it didn't fit. It was kind of shoehorned in between Infinity War and Endgame, and it kind of made a lot of folks worry, like myself, because I was like, how is this going to affect Endgame now? Because nobody likes this character. Because let's be real, this thing has been rebooted in the comics several times, and it's just, I don't know what it is, but she just didn't fit in it. I have nothing against Brie Larson as a person, but I just think she was terribly miscast for this movie. And then you get to Endgame, and now, was Endgame perfect? No, but you know what? I was satisfied with it. I liked the way they wrapped everything up, and I loved Tony Stark's arc at the end. Because if you remember in the first Iron Man, he was all about himself. He didn't want to do anything for anyone except himself. But then at the end, he sacrifices himself to save everybody. And that was just so cool, the way they put all of that together. And like I said, we are never going to get anything like that ever again. And it's a shame because, you know, Marvel has the ability to do these kind of stories, and all they have to do is adapt the source material. But for some reason, they just won't do it. I don't know. Let me know what you think of the first 3 phases of the MCU. I thought they were cinematic gold, and it's just something that'll never be duplicated again. Also, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy this kind of content. And do leave me a comment. I love reading them. I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.